Hello everyone, my name is Hani. I'm a newly qualified doctor from London. Why I suddenly just decided to be a YouTube fave, but here we are.
You're not about to get on this flight, sis. I was interrogated for just under 2 hours.
I didn't think I would film a video like this, but I just thought it would be remiss not to, given kind of what's been going on at the moment, and given that I wanted this channel to be one where I talk about skincare largely for people of color. Like, I'm really interested in hyperpigmentation, especially like periorally, periorbitally, but given that like health and beauty are intrinsically linked, and given what's going on at the moment, I just thought it would be remiss of me not to discuss that to some degree. And if I just kind of start on a personal note, the reason I decided to study medicine was because I wanted a safe space for people like my mum. My mum would always ask me to come to the doctors with her if she ever had an appointment, and I used to find it really annoying, but because she speaks decent, like her English is not 100% perfect, but she speaks pretty fluent English, and like, obviously she'd literally be fine to go to the doctors by herself. But she said she felt like she wouldn't be taken seriously, and as I got older, like, I really began to understand why. I rang the GP the other day for her, and I was literally, the receptionist was having a go at me, telling me that I couldn't, like, just the request I made, she was saying, no, we can't do that, that's not a service we offer, even though I know they offered that service. And she hung up on me, and I redialed, and it wasn't until I said I was actually a doctor that she apologized and started taking me seriously. And the reason I was so reluctant to bring the fact that I've literally been a doctor for like 5 minutes, but the reason I was reluctant to bring that up was because, like, most people can't bring that up. Like, the service should be appropriate for everyone. It shouldn't be that because you have an insight into the system, people are going to take you more seriously or more credibly. And actually, in the middle of my medical degree, I actually took a year out and I did a master's degree in looking at ideas of pain and blackness, and looking at the association or the perceived association between blackness and madness, the instability of the black body, things like that. And I really began to see how a lot of these small microaggressions, these small experiences that are unpleasant that we have, whether there's a receptionist being rude to us on the phone, all of these things are rooted in epistemic injustices that do exist, and a lot of this is enshrined in the kind of racist attitudes that do pervade our societies. There's syndromes called Mrs. Bibi syndrome and Mrs. Begum syndrome. Bibi and Begum are very like stereotypically Bengali surnames, and Mrs. Bibi syndrome is a syndrome where elderly women, in that example from Bangladesh, but generally they kind of are referring to like an ethnic old woman who's just like complaining of random pain, where the pain is thought to have no organic cause, so there's no actual organic thing that's causing the pain, they're just complainers, you know. But actually, in the example given in a paper that discusses this, the writer made a really good point about how as soon as you brought a translator in, the generalized pain that was really non-specific was actually like, I don't know, very specific pain in her ankle, which ended up being gout. I've made the result up, but it was proven that actually a lot of the time what you're brushing off actually does have an organic cause, and you're not investing the appropriate time and labor to establish what it is. Notions around black skin being tougher, and having fewer nerve endings. There was a meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is when you look at loads of paper and you analyze them all together and you exclude the ones that are crap, like maybe they didn't have enough like protocols or controls, or the samples were too small. You look at all the ones that were done properly, you put them together and you come to an overall conclusion. And this meta-analysis found that like around, I want to say 50% of medical students thought that black skin was tougher and had fewer nerve endings, and that black people couldn't feel pain as much. And like, that's obviously horrible, but also I guess unsurprising when we think about how black women often have their pain neglected, and are much less likely to receive pain medicines, and how doctors think they're likely to be malingering. So when you have a patient who's just like annoying you and just making stuff up because they want their fix of pain relief medicines, like they're addicted, and obviously that's not the case. In psychiatry, there's a potent association between blackness and madness, to the point where these associations were probably actually just created de novo, like just made up, to sanitize the colonial project and to give reasons for it. Like, yes, colonization like the scramble for Africa was good because black people are wild, they're primitive, they need civilization and genteel order to be brought to them. And so there's loads of pseudo-scientific papers which were published as scientific papers and still exist today, where they say freedom was pathological for blacks, and bondage was salutary. So bondage actually, like enslavement, actually helped their mental and physical condition, and freedom was pathological for them. And the thing is, obviously, you might think those are relics of the past, but those same pseudo-scientific ideas still exist today. Like, there's still remnants of them. The knowledge that was produced in that era based on those things still exists today. So if we look at the estimated glomerular filtration rate, which is one of the ways we measure kidney function, it assumes in the calculation, it factors race in the calculation, and it assumes that black people are more muscly. And because of that, it means that black people have to have a higher bar of kidney damage before the results will pick it up, because it's already allowed for like increased muscle mass. And increased muscle mass does actually have an effect on your kidney filtration, but why would you assume that black people have increased muscle mass? Like, I, not to use myself as an example, but like my muscle mass is like shocking. And obviously you do just get white people and people who aren't black who are very, very muscly, bodybuilders, etc. So, and it just like, why, and if we specifically think about like black people and having more muscle mass, like what do you think? Like, black people are, I don't know if anyone remembers the video like ages ago, Never Scare a Black Man, just things like that, where you just think black people are just violent and rugged and rough and super strong and whatever. It's just like, all of that is just, all these myths around blackness are just like very worrying and scary to me, and they still exist in medicine and healthcare. And it kind of goes beyond that, like all these diseases we learn about and all these skin conditions we learn about, like Kawasaki disease, which is a vasculitis, so a blood vessel inflammation that happens to children. There's like there's barely any pictures of that on black people. And the way the rash is described, it's described as an erythematous rash. Erythematous means red. Black people don't really go red. Like, even things like malarashes, a rash you get on your cheeks in something called mitral stenosis, a heart condition, or you can get it in lupus. It's called like a red butterfly rash, but it's not going to be red on a black person, or a person with dark skin. It's going to be a purpley color, and it's really like, I've looked for pictures of these, like I haven't seen them. And I actually had a friend who was she was on like a exchange medical thing, I don't really understand, but she was from Zimbabwe, and she saw a malarash here, and she was like, oh my god, wow, it's actually red, it looks like the pictures. And I remember asking her like, oh my god, yeah, like how was it in Zimbabwe? And she was like, yeah, it was purple, you know. And she was like, it was so novel for her to see that actually it could look how it was in the textbooks, because where she was from, like obviously it doesn't, everyone was black where she was. So in general, like a lot of these clinical descriptions of like yellowing of the skin, or erythema, so the redness, or pallor, paleness, or cyanosis, blueness, they're not applicable to people outside of that white normative reference point. And it honestly scares me to think how many people will have died from the misrecognition of disease because of their skin color. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because in my personal experience, obviously I explained how I wanted to kind of champion people like my mum in the clinic. So I wanted to, like, you know, just fresh people, people who don't speak English that well. Like, I really wanted to be a person who could advocate for them in the hospital, in the GP, like for them to know that they had like someone in their corner. But I'm realizing that on a systematic level, I'm still being undermined. We're still being undermined. So even in spite of my efforts, like I, as one person, can't overcome systematic failures. Even when I did blood tests on some of the black patients I had, I noticed a lot of them had low white blood cells, which seemed a bit concerning, because normally low white blood cells is associated with like what's it called, immunosuppression, and things like that. So like, it's not normally a good thing to have low white blood cells, but I noticed it in a lot of my black patients. And then when I did some reading, I found that actually black people, a lot of them do have leukopenia, so a lot of them do have low white blood cells. And like, why? That just raises even more questions. Why do black people have low white blood cells? Why is it just brushed off as a racial variant. Like, why have we not analysed this? How does it mean our immune system functions differently? Because it's not a thing where black people get disease more easily than people of other races. So like that actually creates a lot of questions. Like, immunologically, do we function in a slightly different way? Also things like Lyme disease. Lyme disease is a disease you get from tick bites. And they thought that Lyme disease manifested much more aggressively in black patients, so things like kidney failure, multi-organ involvement, whereas white people had like a much milder version of the disease. But they realized that the early sign of Lyme disease is a rash called erythema migrans. It looks like a bullseye, so people also call it a bullseye rash. But if you Google Lyme disease rash, like literally, I'll try and insert a screen recording. Literally every single picture of it is on a white person's skin. And because of that, someone realized in 2000, like, actually, maybe black people don't have a worse version of it. Maybe we just don't pick up on the erythema migrans. And so when we do figure out that they have Lyme disease, it's at a much later stage and they've got much more advanced disease. But still, like, literally, the screen recording I'm going to insert is today. You can see that no one's addressed it still, like, it's still a problem. And I honestly, like, it makes me scared to think about how all of these reference ranges, when we're comparing blood values, are based on white skin. Even things like peak flows, when they measure your lung capacity and things like that, based on white skin. Drugs largely tested on white people. So actually, like, a lot of the drugs that black people are taking aren't tested on us. And I did see a paper a long time ago where I saw that East Africans have fewer of a certain type of receptor, and so some painkillers, they actually have to take more of them to achieve the same effect, which then says that East Africans taking that medicine would have been dosed sub-therapeutically, so at a level lower than they needed for a very long time. And so, like, we're literally taking drugs that haven't been tested on us, reference ranges that are based on, like, that aren't based on blackness are being used, or like ethnic minorities. And so you realize that, like, well, I realized really sadly that the thing that I thought I wanted to do was like advocate for like marginalized people, I realized that there are loads of systemic failings going on that I can't overcome. Saying that though, when I did my GP rotation while I was at medical school, so I was like the family doctor and people would come and see me, I had so many patients who literally like would take a picture of my ID card and say, I'm only asking for you next time. And like so many people had so many lovely kind things to say. And like, oh, even thinking about it makes me really like, I don't know, it was a very, very nice thing. But I can't help but think that, like, is that because you finally had someone who could like engage with you on your terms and things like that and really listen to you and give your words credibility. So yeah, I don't really know where does one begin in fixing this problem, because it's not about individuals, it's about collectivizing the understanding that the knowledge production that was used to create a lot of the medicine that we understand was foundationally racist. And I'm still figuring it out, hopefully. So obviously it's about making sure that people can identify and unlearn their biases, but at an institutional level, like, how does that happen as well? Hopefully I'll be able to figure out at some point. But it's not an individual thing. It's not just about me, it's about everyone. It's about a collective, which is why I really wanted to make this video. I've really just rambled. I hope what I've said has made sense. And yeah, like, obviously I am really interested in skincare. I do really want to make videos on that, but the reason that I feel the need to do that in the first place, and the reason that I would love to one day have a skincare line for people of colour, is because, again, like, I feel that our issues with skin and skincare have just been sidelined, left on the back burner, because it's not anyone's priority until they can find a capitalist agenda for it. And we did see that with black hair care. So black women actually spend the most dollars, like, per if you divide how much they spend on hair care per year, it was the most by far, like literally by far outstripping any other race and gender. And obviously, like, no one cared. You still, if you wanted to buy black hair products, you still would have to go to like a specialty black hair shop, until the big brands realized that there was money to be made. And it wasn't until very recently that you could buy products for black hair commercially. And even now I'm seeing pictures on Twitter of the black hair care is like behind glass doors, and like security tagged and locked and the white hair care stuff is out. And obviously in the same way, skincare for people of colour and black people should be a thing as well. Like we have slightly different needs. Some of our issues are things like overactive melanocytes causing increased melanin production and deposition and things like that. And not things that affects people of like fairer skin. So I don't know, like if I wanted to buy sunburn lotion, I can just buy that in any drugstore, chemist, whatever, but I wouldn't be able to do the same for like a thing that affects all black people or all people of colour, you know, like hyperpigmentation, which I think is a real shame. The reason I realised actually I do have to speak out about the rest of it is because you can't divorce health and beauty. These things are intrinsically linked. So I just wanted to offer my perspective on that. You know, I honestly feel like I've barely scratched the surface. Like I did a whole master's degree and like countless essays looking at a lot of the racism that exists in the healthcare system, but I hope you found this video like informative. In general, I find a lot of the attitudes of people in medicine and healthcare generally like really scary, to be honest. Like there's a lot of savior and god complexes and things like that. And I feel like a lot of people of colour suffer as a result, especially because in the clinic, the power asymmetry is really crazy, because all of the terms, all of the language of medicine is like super jargon heavy. Like if your potassium's high, it's called like hyperkalemia. Like everything just sounds really complicated when sometimes it's not that complicated. So you've got no purchase, you've got no way of understanding what's going on. You tell your doctor things that are private that you might not tell people in your family. Like they literally know like your secrets. And you don't get anything back. Do you know what I mean? But if anything, you call them doctor. Do you know what I mean? You acknowledge their superiority in a sense by saying that. Which is why I like how in the UK, actually, a lot of the time you'll call your doctor by their first name. Like it's not a thing where you have to call them doctor, because I've seen tweets in America where people were saying you have to. Anyway, more on that later. Yeah, so you literally tell them your secrets and private things that you wouldn't tell other people. You have no way of understanding what's wrong with you, except for with their help and with their generosity. What's at stake is literally your life. And so I think you are, in a sense, like set up to fail. You are at the mercy of this person. And I think, I don't know how to thwart that power asymmetry. Is it necessary? I feel like it's not, but I don't see practical ways around it. And so at the very least, I feel like the healthcare provider should be someone who wants to, as far as possible, be someone who is worthy of that privilege. So make real and concerted efforts to unlearn your biases, to listen to your patients, to ask them what they need from you, to ask them how you can help, to ask them like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do for you in a sincere way? And I just don't think that happens in any way, shape or form. And it is really, really disappointing to me. But yeah, sorry, that was really gloomy. I'm actually like quite a cheerful person, and hopefully, but this is inherently like a depressing topic in that like this is our reality. And I haven't even scratched the surface on like, as a healthcare professional who is someone of colour, like the specific injustices we face on a daily basis. Like I haven't even gotten into that. And hopefully, maybe I'll never get into that, but nonetheless, I hope you found the video informative. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe if you found it helpful. And if you have anything you want to ask, please do leave a comment as well. Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah, dirty. How we let it get like this? I don't know.